They whisper in celestial choirs a dogma etched in starlight angels. Beings of pure luminescence are impervious to the tremors of mortal affection. Their hearts, they say, resonate only with divine harmony, untouched by the turbulent currents of human desire. Yet within the tapestry of eternity, a thread of rebellion glistens, a forgotten tale of an angel who dared to challenge the heavens' immutable decree. This is the lament of Barachiel, the angel of blessings, whose heart, overflowing with empathy for humanity, led him down a path of forbidden love and irrevocable loss. For love, when it transgresses celestial boundaries, transforms into a double-edged sword capable of piercing even the most formidable divine wings. But before we immerse ourselves in this sacred narrative, let us acknowledge the bond we share through storytelling. If you find yourself captivated by the unfolding events, lend your support by liking this account, subscribing for more tales of celestial wonder, and activating the notification bell, ensuring you never miss a glimpse into the unseen realms. Now let us begin. Before the symphony of creation erupted across the cosmos, before Adam inhaled his first breath of earthly air, there existed a dominion of ethereal grace, a realm untouched by the shadows of doubt or the yearnings of earthly desires. This was a kingdom of eternal harmony where unwavering obedience was the highest form of worship, and worship, in turn, was the very essence of life. Within this luminous expanse stood an angel unlike any other, Barachiel, the keeper of blessings. Across the celestial spheres, Barachiel was revered as the embodiment of mercy, the gentle hand of compassion extended towards the vulnerable. While Michael's legendary sword blazed with righteous fire and Gabriel's resonant voice commanded empires, Barachiel's power manifested as a soft, almost imperceptible force, yet one that resonated with eternal significance. He was the unseen guardian who knelt beside suffering souls, a whispered promise of hope carried on the wind to a starving child, a silent assurance to hold on. When fierce storms threatened to consume the earth, it was Barachiel who soothed the tempestuous winds. When hearts shattered beneath the weight of unbearable grief, he offered solace, wrapping them in a comforting embrace as they drifted into sleep. Among the angelic host, Barachiel was the very embodiment of empathy, the gentle pulse of heaven's compassion resonating through the mortal realm. However, with each blessing bestowed, Barachiel felt the heavy weight of humanity pressing upon his ethereal spirit. Every tear he absorbed left an indelible mark. Every cry he soothed imparted a forbidden knowledge, the profound depths of human sorrow. He found himself lingering in the liminal spaces between heaven and earth, drawn not by divine mandate, but by an insatiable curiosity. He observed mortals navigating their fragile existence, witnessing their yearnings, their transgressions, their moments of forgiveness, and their capacity for profound redemption. He watched them stumble, rise, and embrace love with unwavering fervor. A sense of yearning began to stir within him. How could creatures so vulnerable possess such an unwavering capacity for love? How could they maintain faith in a God they could not perceive, even in the face of agonizing pain and devastating loss? Suddenly, the sterile perfection of heaven felt distant, cold, almost devoid of life. Barachiel began to covet what he was meant to pity. Then one fateful night, an event unfolded that would forever alter his eternal existence. Beneath a canopy of shimmering stars, within a humble dwelling illuminated by a solitary flickering candle, he found a woman kneeling in heartfelt prayer. Her name was Adira. Her hands trembled as she clasped them together. Her face was streaked with glistening tears. Her words were barely audible, a whispered confession, a desperate plea for mercy. Yet she did not seek grand miracles or divine intervention. She simply yearned for inner peace. Barakiel should have moved on. Angels were not meant to observe. Their purpose was to obey the divine will, to serve as instruments of celestial grace. Yet something in Adira's voice, a raw, untamed vulnerability, held him captive. It wasn't her physical beauty that captivated him, but her very brokenness, so pure, so painfully honest. Night after night he returned his presence, unseen, his form intangible, yet his spirit drawn to her like a moth to a flame. He became the gentle wind that dried her tears, the subtle warmth that enveloped her heart in comfort. And Adira, unaware of his ethereal presence, began to whisper, "Thank you, Lord, for the peace I feel." She attributed her solace to God, but it was Barakiel, the angel of blessings, who had stepped beyond his divine calling, driven by an overwhelming surge of compassion. He found himself eagerly awaiting her nightly prayers, captivated by the cadence of her voice, a melody from a realm he had never known. When she smiled, a flicker of warmth stirred within his celestial heart. When she wept, he felt her pain as if it were his own. Barakiel was no longer simply blessing her. He was falling in love with her, and that forbidden love began to transform him in ways he could not comprehend. The radiant aura that once enveloped him began to dim, its brilliance subtly muted. Heaven's light, once his source of strength, now felt heavy, like a truth he could no longer bear. Angels were created to serve God, but Barakiel's heart was now devoted to something else entirely. In the courts of heaven, love was considered pure only when directed upwards towards the divine throne. To love downwards towards the mortal realm was the first step on the path to rebellion. Yet Barakiel found himself powerless to resist. He began to whisper Adira's name in his private prayers, a sacred invocation reserved for the divine. He began to dream a forbidden act for angels whose existence was rooted in unwavering wakefulness. He envisioned her walking beside him in the celestial gardens, her laughter echoing through the eternal fields. The longer he lingered on earth, the further he drifted from the radiant embrace of heaven. The other angels noticed the subtle changes in him. His light flickered, his presence dimmed. He no longer sang in harmony with the celestial choir. His gaze was perpetually drawn towards the earth, while the others remained fixed on God. In the hushed silence of heaven, the first shadow of disobedience began to coalesce within Barakiel's heart. He had not yet fallen, but he was descending in a way that no angel had ever dared before. Heaven watched with bated breath. God waited with infinite patience. Barakiel, blinded by the intoxicating allure of love, remained oblivious to the fact that each moment he spent near Adira was etching the first line of his own exile. For love, particularly forbidden love, always demands a steep price. And soon Barakiel would discover the true cost of his transgression. There exists a pivotal moment when obedience falters, not with a resounding crash of thunder or a blinding flash of fire, but with a subtle whisper, a quiet voice that dares to question, why not? For Barakiel, that moment arrived with a quiet, almost imperceptible shift. Night after night, he watched Adira pour her heart out in prayer beneath the dim glow of her solitary candle. And with each supplication, her unwavering faith seemed to pierce him deeper than any celestial ray of light. She prayed to a God who had never responded aloud, yet her belief remained unshaken. Barachiel, who had witnessed the splendor of heaven itself, found himself envying her unwavering faith. She believed without seeing, while he saw, yet could no longer believe as he once did. One night, as the stars hung like silent witnesses in the vast expanse above the earth, he dared to ask himself a question no angel should ever consider. Would God truly condemn an act of love? That single thought, seemingly innocent, undeniably tender, yet inherently dangerous, shattered heaven's sacred silence. For heaven is not swayed by questions, it thrives on absolute obedience. But Barachiel could no longer conform to what his heart vehemently rejected. He resolved to descend. A tremor rippled through the skies as his wings carried him down through the veils of ethereal light, traversing realms rarely trod by angels. The very air around him shimmered with an aura of judgment. Even the stars seemed to recoil in disapproval. For the first time in his eternal existence, Barachiel felt the chilling grip of fear. He was forsaking eternity for a fleeting moment of earthly connection for a woman who didn't even know his name. When his feet finally touched the soil of the earth, he felt the crushing weight of mortality pressing upon his ethereal spirit. The world was heavy, pulsating with life, imperfect and yet undeniably beautiful. He had observed creation from above, but never experienced it from within. Now he could inhale the scent of rain, feel the crisp bite of the wind, hear the rhythmic cadence of his own heartbeat, a sensation previously unknown to angels. He moved among the humans initially unseen, clothed in humility rather than radiant light. Each heartbeat, each breath, each joyous burst of laughter filled him with a sense of awe. But when he found Adira once more kneeling beside her ever-present candle, the world around him faded into silence. She did not perceive an angel. She saw a man, for Barachiel had concealed his divine glory, veiled his magnificent wings, and dimmed his luminous halo to blend seamlessly among her kind. She lifted her gaze and their eyes met for the first time. There was no cataclysmic thunder, no divine proclamation, only a profound sense of recognition, as if their souls had known each other across the vast expanse of time. An ancient, unspoken connection passed between them, and in that instant, heaven wept silent tears. Barachiel remained among the mortals, engaging with Adira as an equal. He learned the simple pleasure of tasting bread, the comforting warmth of a crackling fire, the satisfying exhaustion that followed physical labor. He no longer perceived humanity as fragile beings, but as reflections of something sacred, something that the angels had long forgotten. Adira found solace in his presence. She didn't know his true identity, only that his very being radiated peace. And Barachiel for the first time understood that love wasn't merely a celestial light, it was a conscious choice. Days blended into nights, nights stretched into weeks, and the realm of heaven grew increasingly shrouded in silence. The other angels whispered Barachiel's name in hushed tones of grief. Michael's light dimmed with sorrowful resignation. Gabriel averted his gaze from the earth, unable to bear witness to his comrade's transgression. Raphael the healer remained silent, for even his celestial abilities could not mend a wound born of love. God did not speak. He rarely did, at least not initially. But heaven patiently awaited repentance, and Barachiel offered none. Every time he gazed into Adira's eyes, he saw something that even the celestial kingdom could not provide: freedom. And for the first time since creation, an angel's wings began to fade, not as a result of battle, but as a consequence of love. He remained blissfully unaware of this gradual erosion. Each day his light grew fainter, his strength diminished. The winds that once carried him effortlessly across the sky now seemed to defy his command. He was still brachial, but not as he once was. He was slowly transforming into something in between, a being existing between heaven and earth, imbued with both love and loss. Above, in the highest realm, the throne of God remained steadfast, patiently waiting. For heaven does not strike in anger. It waits until love becomes idolatry and mercy transforms into defiance. And soon, Barachiel's love would demand a sacrifice that even his heart would struggle to bear. For countless nights, Barachiel had turned his gaze towards the stars, wondering if heaven still kept watch over him. He was acutely aware of his transgression, acknowledging it not with arrogance, but with the quiet resignation of someone who knew he could never undo his decision. He had broken the one inviolable law that bound the angels. He had learned to love like a mortal. But heaven's silence was not an indication of mercy. It was the deceptive calm that preceded the inevitable storm of judgment. That morning dawned like any other, a gentle breeze rustling through the olive trees, the distant cooing of doves, the world enveloped in an atmosphere of tranquility. Yet deep within Barachiel's heart, a sense of foreboding stirred. The air felt heavier, imbued with an unsettling sacredness, like a forgotten memory resurfacing. And then it arrived. A blinding light erupted across the horizon, not the warm glow of sunrise, but the radiant effulgence of heaven itself. It was a spectacle of pure, unadulterated brilliance, far too intense for mortal eyes to behold without trembling. The mountains seemed to bow in reverence before it. Barachiel rose to his feet, his hands trembling uncontrollably. He recognized this presence, wholly ancient and unyielding. He whispered, "They've found me." The voice that followed was not a roar of thunder. It was a lament of profound sorrow. "Barachiel," it resonated through the valley, "why have you strayed from the path of glory?" He fell to his knees, his eyes glistening with celestial light. "Because I saw something in her," he murmured, "something I never witnessed in all of heaven, the very breath of God in its most fragile form." An unbearable silence descended. The voice of heaven spoke once more, imbued with pain rather than wrath. "You were sent to guard, not to feel, to observe, not to bind your heart to the dust." Barachiel lowered his head in submission. "Then why," he asked softly, "did you grant me the capacity to feel at all?" Heaven offered no response. It never answers questions born of love, for love itself is both the answer and the ultimate punishment. And then it happened. The light that had always burned within him began to flicker and fade. He felt his strength ebbing away, not with a violent surge, but with a slow, agonizing withdrawal of his very soul. "Please," he whispered, his voice cracking with despair, "don't take her, not yet." But heaven's silence only deepened. Each passing second felt like an eternity being erased. Adira, hearing the strange sound of wind and weeping in the distance, raced towards the hill where he knelt. When she saw him, she froze in place. "Barachiel!" she cried, her voice trembling with fear. "What's happening to you?" He turned towards her, his eyes glowing faintly, a desperate battle between sorrow and love raging within them. "I told you," he said, weakly, "love comes at a price." She knelt beside him, clutching his hands tightly. Then let me share the burden too. He shook his head slowly. You can't. You belong to the world I've forsaken. And with those final words, his magnificent wings dissolved into shimmering dust, scattering upon the wind. The valley grew silent. Heaven's light receded, leaving behind only the soft hues of morning. He was no longer radiant, no longer divine, just a man with tear-filled eyes, holding the hand of the woman who had caused him to fall from grace and rise into love, all in the same breath. That day, heaven lost a devoted messenger, but the earth gained a timeless story, one whispered among the angels who still questioned, what is love worth when it costs you heaven itself? When the last feather drifted from Barachiel's wings, the wind stilled. It was as if the world itself paused, not in judgment, but in awe. A being who had once stood among the mightiest had become one of the most vulnerable. The celestial brilliance that had defined him faded from his body. The golden light that had once enveloped him now clung faintly to his skin, like the ghost of his former self. He reached back to where his wings had been. Only warmth remained, not the power of flight. Adira stood before him, tears streaming down her face. She longed to celebrate his continued existence, yet mourn the loss of his celestial grace. He looked at her, and for the first time his voice trembled like a mortal's. "Do you still see an angel?" he asked quietly. She shook her head, stepping closer to him. "No," she whispered. "I see the one who chose love over eternity." Her words resonated within him, not with pain, but with a profound sense of understanding. He realized that he had not only fallen from heaven, he had fallen into humanity. Barachiel attempted to stand, but each step felt heavier than the last. The world now possessed weight. Air that once danced with light now pressed against him with an invisible force. His heart beat wildly in his chest. He could feel it, the pulse of mortality. Each beat served as a reminder that heaven's perfection was gone, replaced by something fragile, unpredictable, and undeniably real. Night arrived sooner that day. The sky transitioned from purple to deep indigo. The stars above shimmered faintly, distant and cold, as if even they had turned their backs on him. He sat by the edge of a quiet stream, staring at his reflection. No halo, no radiant glow, just eyes weary and filled with a mixture of regret and newfound wonder. Adira sat beside him. "You don't have to look back," she said softly. "You can build something new here." He turned to her with a faint, broken smile. "Angels don't build," he murmured. "We obey, we bless, we protect. I don't even know how to live." "Then learn," she said, taking his hand in hers. "Start with me." He gazed down at her hand, small, warm, and trembling. For a fleeting moment, he felt a sense of peace wash over him. But peace, too, has a price. While the earth was beginning to accept him, heaven had not forgotten him. High above the stars, voices whispered his name, not in anger, but in mourning. Barachiel, the bringer of blessings, had become the first of his kind to fall not from pride, but from the overwhelming power of love. And yet his fall had subtly altered something within the celestial realm. Where once there was only unwavering law, now a faint shadow of emotion lingered. Some angels gazing down at the earth began to wonder, if love can cause even the purest of us to fall, what does that say about the one who created it? The next morning, Barachiel awoke to the gentle patter of rain. The rain fell softly at first, like a whispered confession from the heavens. Each drop struck the earth with the tenderness of a farewell kiss, as if the sky itself mourned what had been lost. Barakiel stood beneath the gray canopy, feeling the chill seep through his mortal skin, the weight of gravity pulling on a body that no longer remembered how to bear suffering. Rain pooled in his palms, and to his astonishment, he realized his hands were shaking, not with fear, but with the unbearable ache of a soul newly burdened by choice. Adira stepped toward him, her hair damp, her breath trembling in the cold air. "Is this the end?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Barakiel looked toward the horizon where light and darkness wrestled silently. He shook his head. "No," he said softly. "This is the beginning. Heaven demanded perfection. Humanity taught me love. Now I must discover whether the two can coexist." Thunder murmured in the distance, not violent, but mournful, like the echo of wings grieving a brother they could no longer reach. Barakiel closed his eyes, feeling the rain mix with the last remnants of celestial light fading from his skin. For the first time in eternity, he felt small. For the first time in eternity, he felt free. But freedom, he knew, was never without consequence. So what have we learned from Barakiel's tale? That even in the most structured divine realms, love can blossom in unexpected ways, challenging the very foundations of what we believe. His story reminds us that empathy and connection are powerful forces, and that sometimes the greatest acts of devotion come from choosing love, even when it means sacrificing everything else. It's a story about the beauty of human experience and the courage it takes to forge your own path, even when it leads you away from the light you once knew. What did you think of Barakiel's journey? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and tell me what resonated with you most. Do you have any questions about the story, or perhaps a different perspective? Let's discuss. And if you enjoyed delving into this tale of celestial wonder and the power of forbidden love, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future stories from unseen realms. There are always more whispers from the edges of eternity waiting to be heard. Thanks for watching.